This is the Rane 4. Following on from the Rane 1, this is the first ever 4-channel DJ controller from Rane. These decks aren't motorized. This is a fixed platter unit, so it's not primarily scratch. It's got 4 channels instead of 2 on this mixer, which is a hybrid between a scratch mixer and a club mixer. Think 3 style rather than DMC. But it is a high-end Serato unit. On top of that, it's got Rane effects built in and then some. It's Rane quality. It's a solid metal piece of kit, really, really nicely built. And it's got all the inputs and outputs that you'd expect on a Rane mixer with a couple of provisos. It's got Serato control for absolutely everything, probably the best Serato control of anything out there, including stems, the current battleground for DJ software. So we've got a lot to talk about. Before we get started, it is a unit that is not available until the beginning of 2023. This is an early production unit I have here, and the software, while announced, is going to change and improve as we get closer to that launch date. So do bear that in mind when you're watching this review of the unit. For instance, they've already improved the noise and the flanger software effects, which work with the channel effects knobs here, based upon feedback that we gave them on what we thought of it. So expect further changes that will basically improve on what I'm about to show you here. Look, we've got a lot to get through, so let's get started with a comprehensive tour of what we've got here. Let's start with a deck then. So the decks are identical, lovely 8.5-inch jog wheel, nice display in the middle that gives us BPM, waveform, cues, timer lapse, the deck we're on, key, and the pitch, all that kind of thing. So from the top, we've got beat jump and a beat jump length. This is really cool to have this here with that control. Slip and vinyl mode, sensor and reverse, standard loading with scrolling through our tracks and then pressing a button to scroll through our file tree in our software. Also a preparation window button there as well, and double tap it for instant doubles. There's another way of getting instant doubles on this unit. Kind of working down here, I'll tell you about that in a bit. Here's our deck selector buttons, really lovely long pitch fader here as well, with a pitch range and a key lock button here. The key lock is accessed using the shift button. So moving down to the performance area down here at the bottom, there are beautiful RGB pads, OLED displays, which are really nice because depending on what you've got selected here, they give you feedback information on the thing you're doing, which especially when you combine it with the parameters to select between different parts, makes it a lot easier to understand. And also it can show you more information than you see on the Serato screen, for instance, if you've got labeled hot cues, which is cool. The pads have got all the standard Serato modes: hot cue, pitch play, roll, save loops, sampler, scratch bank, slicer, and stems. Stems get their own pad controls, and we'll talk through those in a little while, of course. Play, pause, cue, sync. They're clicky plastic buttons there, really nice feel to them. Loop on off and loop half and double, and using shift you can use loop in and loop out points to set manually. And then the acapella and instrumental button here, of course we're talking about those in a minute. Full key adjust using pitch and time, which is the key adjust algorithm inside Serato DJ Pro. This unlocks pitch and time as well as Serato DJ Pro. So all that functionality is in the software without extra expense. Key sync and key reset here. So over to the mixer, standard bottom part of the mixer, 4 faders instead of 2. So it's not really a scratch mixer. It's kind of more a performance mixer. Has a brilliant crossfader in it, but also the 4 up faders and your cue buttons. So quite simple down the bottom here with 4 screws so you can take it off for servicing the faders. Then moving up to this section here, paddles like you get on a scratch mixer, and then the effects control is this area here. We're going to look in a lot of detail at the effects control very shortly. Moving up the mixer then, at the top here, 3-channel EQ and level controls, source inputs because there's 2 USBs around the back, but also you can switch channels 3 and 4 to line inputs. Not all 4 channels, just channels 3 and 4 to line, and there's also a line phono switch around the back for using record decks with those inputs. There's 2 microphones. Microphone 1 is at the top here. We'll look at where microphone 2 is in a minute. There's the on-off for the mic. It's got an echo. I'd like to see a reverb as well for microphone. I think it's more useful than echo. Then a 2-band EQ and the mic level with a talk over button as well here. So with that, we can now look at this side, and then when we've done that, look at the front and back. Just standard, you've got your VU meters, quantized button at the top here, booth, which is a strange place really, isn't it? You've got your booth and zone control here. Sampler's nice because you can assign the sampler to channel 4. So as well as the volume, you can then put the whole thing through here and further adjust the EQs, put it through your effects and so on. Little joystick, but I'll talk to you about the effects in a little while. So around the back of the unit, we start off by looking at this end. 2 USBs, we're plugging in our 2 computers. Then balanced XLR output, unbalanced main output as well, balanced TRS outputs for your booth monitor. Then here's your inputs, RCA inputs for your extra stuff you want to plug in that isn't computer controlled, and there's the 2 microphone inputs there. So the other microphone input is actually around the front of the unit. So down here at the front of the unit we have our microphone input with your on-off button for that, and also your level control and your 2-band EQ for that as well. Moving down the unit here, we've got full control, as you would expect, for the crossfader. So not only crossfader assign, but crossfader contour. You can actually change more things about that as well, and I'll show you how to do that in a little while when we look at the utility menu. And then down here is our headphones with a split Q. Always good to see a split Q, especially on a controller. It gets left off so often. And then your 1/4 and 1/8 inch inputs there as well under the standard Q master mix and volume control. Nice chunky rubberized protection here for this. And also I do like the big feet. They're kind of like a record deck, these big feet at the bottom. So now we've had a tour of the unit, it's time to start looking in more detail at it. And it's quite a complicated unit. It's got a lot going on it. So we need to look at the effects, specifically the hardware effects. We also need to take a look at the configuration that you can do away from the software. And finally, last but not least, a really close look at how this implements Serato's stems. So let's get started on that. There's an awful lot of effects on this, and they're all in this central part here. So we'll look at the channel effects, then we'll look at the main effects. The channel effects are per channel, and the classic, of course, channel effect is filter. There's a filter roll. A noise. Flanger. Now these are all software effects, these are all working with Serato, but if you've got something on the line inputs and you haven't got the computer plugged in, then 3 and 4 default to a filter, so you've still got that on your non-computer channels. Now the main effects are here, they're called main effects, and there's 2 sets of main effects. There's Serato's, press this button it goes orange, then these control the 3 internal effects on the left and right in Serato, and the controls all work similarly to what I'm about to show you, because we're going to concentrate now on the hardware effects, because the hardware effects are what's unique about this unit. They're basically Rane's effects with lots more added. There's 22. Even though there's only 6 slots, there's 22. I'll show you how we access them. So press that button, this button goes blue, your screen starts to tell you stuff about the effects, and we're ready to dial in and have a look at them. They're all post fader, post crossfader. And they're routed to Serato as well, which means that it will record what you do on them, which is really nice. Right, so there's a few controls. Quick talk through the controls. Effects assign, channels 1 and 3, channels 2 and 4. The depth, wet and dry, is here. You've got tap here, and this will tap in a rhythm if you're not getting it right from the deck automatically. You've got a joystick here. Moving this joystick left and right will let you dial in the rhythm on the left and right deck in the way I just said, or you can dial it in by holding down shift and turning the parameter knob. But pressing this one up and down, the joystick up and down, changes the beat value of the effect, the cycle value of the effect. The LFO working underneath it from like 1 beat all the way up to 4 and all the way down to 1/64th. I guess it depends what effect you're on as to how that works exactly. So over here, the parameter knob will change a parameter of the effect, but also if you hold down one of the effect slots and turn the parameter knob and then press it, it will change to one of the other 22. We'll start, and then of course you've got your paddles, which are locking at the top and momentary at the bottom. They all feel lovely. So let's talk about the effects. Let's have a listen to them. We've got the echo effect here as our first one. parameter here is the high pass filter on that. The 3/4 echo there. Recycler. And it's resonance on this here to decide how much filter resonance you get on the recycler effect. Next one is scale down. That's scaling down a beat at a time, but we can use the joystick to change that to say half a beat. Parameter will change the scale. That was a major scale. This is a minor scale, scale down. There's a pentatonic there as well somewhere. We've got a riser, it's kind of the opposite. Matrix, kind of a mix of the two, I'd say. And a classic echo out at the end there. Let's have a look at some of the other ones though. Let's go to this one here, this slot here. So you hold it down and then you turn the parameter to select something else. So for instance, we've got a backspin. That wasn't a backspin because I forgot to actually dial it in. So go to the effect and then press down the parameter button. There you go, that's dialed in now. Sounds all right. Beat breaks, but like an automatic slicer. Bit crush. You can adjust the bit depth. Vinyl break. Cyclone. Kind of like a loop roll delay type thing going on there. Next one is delay. We've seen similar to delay. We've seen an echo, duck echo, echo, echo out. So all the echoes there. Flanger. We've seen a flanger at the top here. Hold echo. Matrix. We've seen phaser, similar to flanger. Pitch down. We've seen pumper. This is an interesting one. This is a little bit like a sidechain compression. You can say how quickly it works. It's currently on a 1 beat. And you can offset it as well using this. You can set a pump going there for that kind of instant disco sound. So recycler we have seen. Reverb is the least fun for me of these, the reverb. It's too quiet, I can't get it loud enough. I turn the depth all the way up, we set it to a large reverb, you get a small and large reverb there, get the high pass filter really low, but it's still just not very loud. Probably best off sticking to the software echo, the software reverb in Serato, which is pretty cool. The better of the two, I would say. Rider. I think that's the same as riser. I think that's the same as riser. It's just been labelled differently, actually. But I might. Oh no, there's a riser next to it. Anyway, quite a similar kind of thing. A standard roll is in there as well. scale down. I'm not sure what the final one does, STTR out, I've got to be honest. So lots and lots of effects there for you to choose on. There's 22 of them. And the thing with these is that you can save them to these slots, and you can also reset to the standard. So have the ones you want set here, and it will survive a power cycle. Everything will be exactly how you want it whenever you turn the unit on. One of the nice things about this unit is that you don't have to plug in Serato in order to do some of the fine tuning that you would expect on a Rane unit. So I'll unplug Serato completely here, and then on the top panel here, by holding down Shift and pressing the hardware software button, it takes us into this menu here, which is a special little menu that helps you alter things like the crossfader, microphone and other settings. So the way you do that is by using the joystick to move it up and down through the different settings that it's got here. And so those settings are crossfader, microphone, wheel display, and firmware update, and then effects and factory reset. So I'm just using the joystick kind of off camera there to do this. So we'll stay zoomed in on the displays and look at what you can do. So by moving the joystick to the right on crossfader, we get the cut in, and you can adjust cut in left and cut in right to decide how sharply or how much you have to move the crossfader in order for it to cut in. And this is currently set to 3, but by turning the parameter knob, I can change that to various different values there. So the next one is, let's get back from there to microphone. So here we can adjust the talk over level. That is how much the music dips when you're talking over. Talk over hold, so how quickly it dips in and out when you're doing that. And you can decide whether the microphone gets sent to the booth speakers, to the headphones and to the computer. So lots of flexibility there with the microphone, which is awesome to see for live streaming and for stopping feedback and so on. It's good to have all those things there. So the wheel display, you get to choose whether the needle marker is on or off. You also get to choose whether the time shown is remaining or elapsed. There you go, remaining or elapsed. And again, I'm turning the parameter knob here in order to change through those things. And then firmware, FX reset and factory reset. This will just let you go in there and do the nuclear options if you want to just get the unit set back to how it came. Now stems are a really big part of this device. It's one of the things it's sold on. So let's have a look at how those work. This area here is where most of it gets controlled for each of the decks, with your pads and your special buttons for a cappella and instrumental. But up here, there's also some stems goodness as well. Let's start by looking down here though. We've got here a cappella and instrumental. So I'm going to get a loop playing. And I'm going to tap a cappella. Let's tap instrumental. And what that means is whatever else you're doing on the controller, whether your pads are set to stems mode or not, whatever you're doing up here, you can instantly tap in the a cappella or the instrumental of the songs you're playing by pressing these, which is unique to this device. Now, while the other way of controlling stems using the pads isn't unique to this device, what is unique here is that it's got its own selector button at the top. It's this one here that's got stems written on it. So by tapping this, we go into the stems mode, which you might have seen us demo when we first looked at Serato's stems, but we'll have a quick demo of it now as well. So the first thing I want you to understand is that when I press a cappella here, it's just going to turn off the other stems here and leave the a cappella on. Watch it. And when I press instrumental here, it's going to switch off the vocals and turn everything else on. And so I can turn the vocals back on manually here. But it does mean that I've got more control. So for instance, I could get rid of the melody. Get rid of the vocals for an instant dub. Get to just the drums, which clearly Could be very useful for mixing because you can take everything else out and leave a beat for you to mix something else over the top of. This is really cool, but there's another set of buttons underneath as well, which gives us even more cool stuff to play with. Let's turn everything back on. And let's look at these one by one. So that's echoing out the vocal and leaving everything else playing. That's leaving you with the a cappella, but it's echoing out the instruments so that you've got a nice way of turning those off rather than doing it abruptly. Let's listen to this one. It's giving us a deck stop on everything apart from the vocal. And then this one. It's taking the drums out but leaving everything else, and again doing a nice little echo effect on the drums there. It's cool because it just gives you instant remixing ability without really thinking too much about it once you learn what they can do. So there is another thing that you need to see here, probably the biggest feature really when it comes to stems. It's utterly unique to this unit, and that is called stems split. Now stem split is controlled up here with these buttons. You have your usual deck layer buttons here, decks 1 and decks 3, but stem split takes over both of those decks and does something very clever with them. This has got a microphone by the 1 and a keyboard representing all the music, I guess, by the 3. And the same down here, you've got a microphone and a keyboard on these faders, which should give you a clue as to what's going on here. So I'll demo it by putting both of these faders up for both of these decks. And by the way, the same thing works on the other 2 decks, other 2 channels on the other side. It's like a split down the middle. You get 2 of these. And I'm going to make sure that my gains and EQs and everything else is set the same for each channel. These 2 channels are set the same. And this works like an instant doubles. Instant doubles is where you tap a button and it immediately starts the track playing that you're currently playing on an adjacent channel, on an adjacent deck, but at the same tempo and at the same place in the track. And performance DJs use it to then give them 2 versions to play with. But this does it by taking it a stage further, because this will then give you the a cappella on the first channel and the instrumental on the other. In other words, it will split the track in 2 and give you effectively 2 versions of the track playing. So let's look at why that would be useful. Firstly, let's just do it. Let's get the track playing again. And I'm going to put the waveforms on the screen as well, so you can see what's going on. So at the moment, we've only got 1 waveform playing. But now watch what happens when I tap this as this loop goes around for the first time. Stem split. You see we've got 2 waveforms there and they look very different. The top one is actually the instrumental and the bottom one is the vocal. But it sounds the same to us. And that's because both these channels are open and both these channels are set the same. But actually, I've got the instrumental on this fader and the vocal on that fader. So now there's all kinds of things I can do. I can set the crossfader so I can cut the vocal in. I can use EQs. I can use filter on, say, just the instrumental. Let's try using a filter roll on the vocal. I could use the filter on the instrumental while at the same time using my paddle effects on the vocal. And then you can put a bit of thought into this and do some really crazy stuff. So actually, even though we've got a vocal on one and an instrumental on the other, it doesn't have to be like that. I can go to the individual decks and change things. So for instance, I could go to the deck number 3, go to my stems, and you can see it's set how we would imagine. We've got just the instruments playing and no vocal. I could put the vocal back in on deck number 3. So now I've got effectively the whole track playing on deck 3. And just the vocal on deck 1. So the vocal's now doubled up. But now I could put the key on deck 1 down all the way to an octave lower, for instance. And I could put an effect on just that vocal. So then I could do my filter roll thing just on that pitch down vocal. And I could apply the effect to that vocal. While the original is still playing away and we can still hear that original vocal. And that's just, look, a couple of things that you can do very, very quickly in just a few seconds to do something clever with a track by splitting it. Now there's one final thing I want to show you on this because it's instant doubles. You've got 2 versions of the track playing. And that means you don't have to stick them together. You can do independent things with them, like this. What I'm going to do now is tap deck 1, the vocal. And I'm now controlling only deck 1, leaving the music playing. What if I switch to the instrumental? I could spin this back and leave the vocal playing. I think we've got enough to be able to come to a conclusion about this. Look, it's an awesome unit. It's a beast. It's great fun. It's really well built. It sounds fantastic. The effects are awesome. The jogs are brilliant, albeit not motorized. It comes with Serato DJ Pro, comes with pitch and time, which you need to unlock the key shifting features and so on this unit. So that's all in the box. It does have a few little things that I would change. I would have screen brightness adjustment for these screens. You can't get any way of doing that even in the firmware that we looked at. There's no beat gridding controls anywhere on it, which is strange. I'd expect to see beat gridding controls. Maybe they can kind of find a way of adding those so you don't have to go into the software to quickly adjust your beat grids on the fly. The biggest thing I would say is that the software is not perfect. The stem software is not perfect. As you heard, it sounds good, but it doesn't sound brilliant. And the other big thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the fact that yes, it's a standalone mixer, but only across 2 channels, only across the 2 outside channels. And so you don't get 4-channel standalone control at all on this. It's designed to be used with these 2 channels, almost like auxiliary channels for the internal ones. That's one way of thinking about this, I think, because you can split the stems across these channels. You could put the sampler through this one here, or you can plug external things into both channels. And of course you can have 2 USBs, 2 two laptops plugged in as well. Just bear in mind that limitation there. For most people, I don't think it'll be an issue, but you can't take this along and plug 4 things into it and never plug in your laptop. It's designed to be used with a laptop plus the extra channels and the extra functions going on there. Also worth reiterating that the channel effects, they kind of go back to just filter on channels 3 and 4. If you plug this in without a laptop, then you get channels 3 and 4 with the 2 external inputs, and these will just be filters. You don't get these here because these are Serato effects. However, you do get all the effects across the middle here. So who is this aiming at? Well, we've already mentioned it. It's really aiming at the performance DJ who wants full control over Serato. There's surprisingly few high-end Serato controllers that offer that. You've got your DDJ 1000 from Pioneer DJ, got the forthcoming Mixon 8 Pro from Reloop, and the DJ 707M, our favorite controller for high-end Serato use, but certainly for use by mobile and event DJs. But this one now joins it at the top, and this would be our preference if you're a performance DJ, because nothing else comes close to it. The price is going to be under $2,000. That's the best we know at the moment. And the launch date, beginning of 2023. Again, that's the best we know at the moment. Watch Digital DJ Tips for more info on that and other news on the Rane 4. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, do remember we're the world's leading DJ school. We have tutors like Jazzy Jeff, James Hype, DJ Angelo, and many, many more. So if you want to join us, it's free. You get a free copy of our book, Rock the Dance Floor, just for joining. So click the link on the website or click the URL digitaldjtips.com/join and become our latest free member. We'd love to see you there. But meanwhile, from me, Phil, here in the Digital DJ Tips studio with the Rane 4, get good, get out there, make the moments. I'll see you again very soon.